Ravi Mayuram. I'm the CTO here at Couchbase. Been here almost 10 odd years in this journey of a simple key value cache all the way to a distributed database which can actually give you transactions and you can interleave interactions with transactions without paying the penalty. So that has been the journey here as to how we wanted to modernize the database. The good old days, it was basically a situation of, a very specific tool that you would use for a specific purpose. And that's what we saw. We had to change over the period of time. As if you want to modernize something, you have to offer something which doesn't exist in the existing tools and services. And our general approach has been to consolidate multiple layers of technology, which actually leads to data sprawl and consequently all the other problems. And this concept of consolidating layers is nothing new. It happens to us in the consumer industry all the time. Your iPhone is a consolidation of 40 odd devices, your laptop. If you are like me, who started the career in the late 90s and stuff, you know how desktops used to look and how the laptops consolidate multiple layers. And now you have cameras and Wi-Fi's and everything else is built in. Similarly, in this case, what we have basically done here is use an open standard data format, which is JSON. So one of the key capabilities of Couchbase is that you don't have to define a schema before you can write a single byte of data. This is where the relational and classic OLTP systems start, and that creates a whole bunch of issues eventually. So this is a straight up flexible JSON database. You put a JSON in, and you can now do fractional distillation on it, so to say. You can use this as a cache, as a key value store, persisted key value store of any value. And if the value is JSON document, then the magic begins. Then you have the full power of a SQL tier. You can do full text search on this JSON. So if you see SQL queries about knowing the schema, and full text search is about not knowing the schema. So you can do both data retrieval and information retrieval. And the way we have architected this is that when you do any one of these operations, one doesn't impede the other in terms of resource constraints. That's the multidimensional scaling capability. And then we also have analytics on this. We can do JSON analytics. And that's a system which is a MPP architecture. And so this makes Couchbase hybrid operational analytical system, HOPE or HTAP or translytical, however you want to call this. And you can bring your own logic on top of it, which is our eventing capability, which is all JavaScript based. This is the modern version of what we would call as stored procedures and triggers in the good old days. But you can now actually write your custom logic, not within, though you can bring that within the transactional boundary. This can operate outside the transactional boundary also. That allows you to scale your logic. And we manage the distributed scaling of the system. And all this is now, we made replication built into the system protocol, which allows us to replicate across geos, which is our cross data center replication capability, which means you can set up multiple clusters. And at the same time, the same replication capability applied differently gives us the mobile sync capability, which takes it all the way to edge. So you don't have to go build a whole set of systems for mobile backend as a service, because we handle most of the issues in the data tier. So your application tier gets simplified. So that's the sort of, in a nutshell, what we built in these last 10 odd years to bring this to a platform that's versatile. And this multi-model modality is a question that comes into play when you have, each system imposes a model. But in our case, you are beyond multi-model in one sense because it's JSON and it's flexible. And that gives you, it kind of delivers on the promise of the, good old big data discussion, which is about bringing logic to data. So you keep the data, write the data once into Couchbase, and you can find different types of logics you can bring different type of logic on top of it. A full SQL relational logic, a full information retrieval logic, a full analytical logic, eventing logic, or a time series logic. And so that's the general platform that we've built here. So the last many years that I've been sort of talking to our customers, and many of the features that we put in here comes from our input from our customers. And when I talk to many of the leaders in this space, in terms of the customers that we talk to, the kinds of issues that they bring up and what is their fundamental concern. We are at this level talking about features and architecture. But when I have these discussions with them, their concerns are slightly higher level. That's what we're actually trying to solve. And that's what I would generally go about giving you a sense of what are my conversations with the CIOs, CDOs, and CTOs of the world. And what is my takeaway from there, and how what we have built is applicable to them, and why we have those exciting discussions.
Just curious on the analytics side, how much do you expose, especially around performance, to the client? So if there's latency, performance lag, where we could see potentially further below, or is there write stalls, or like how much do you expose to the client sides of what's going on underneath it?
Yeah, I think we have a fairly detailed view of this in our administration console, where you can get to see the I/O, the compute side, the I/O side, the query processing, because it's an MPP system, so you would want to see how the query planning works, how the query execution works. You have the full visibility of that tier all the way from the query planning execution to hardware resource consumption. You have the and internally we use Prometheus for a lot of the stats collection stuff. So you have that integration as well. So if those REST APIs are available for you to instrument and engineer it the way that you want. At the end of the day, the stats is collected in JSON, so you can REST APIs are available, so you can go to town with whatever customization you want to build on top of it. It's a very good question, because at the end of the day, it's a very sophisticated landscape. People know a lot about what they're doing, and so they would want to inspect, and they take us to task. The other systems only consume so much CPU. How come this is higher? Let's go tune it, and that's how the product has evolved.
Yeah, I'm actually on that note. Is there any real fundamental difference between the self-hosted Couchbase and running just purely key value store, or in Capella?
Yeah, no, fundamentally, our philosophy is that the platform is sort of, because we believe in this hybrid cloud deployment in one sense. Every enterprise that we work with, there are use cases that they want us to manage. There are use cases that they would want to run. And there are use cases that they would want to run on the cloud, and some that they would want to run on-prem. So that's the landscape that we cover. So the fundamental platform that we have, the data plane, is something that is identical. The control plane and the sort of the tuning and other capabilities that we have used to offer this as a service is the sort of uniqueness. So from the standpoint of performance or standpoint of feature capabilities, is one for one between what you would see in the service versus what's in the platform. Yes, it is possible that we may not have turned everything on, but in the platform we'll get everything, and in the service, because we just want to be sort of careful, mindful. But customers, whatever they ask, we actually work with them to make that happen.
Great, that was fantastic.
Lovely. And just to give you that sense that how that works is basically the platform is the same, and we have the Kubernetes operator on top, and that's how you can do your stuff. And that's the same sort of infrastructure we use for our sort of cloud operations as well. So you can have the ability to program the database deployment, and the same model that is used for you to extend that is what we are using on top to offer this as a service to you. So from the standpoint of my conversations with the various sort of leaders in the data space, generally what has happened is that, as you know, there is a digital transformation initiative, which is a business transformation initiative. And that is basically immediately leads to what is the data strategy behind it. So because that's where the real transformation is actually happening. So the CTOs and the CDOs are basically tasked with that, coming up with that strategy. So that there are statistics which we're quoting here from various surveys, that about 80% of the CTOs and CDOs and CIOs in some cases are responsible for the data strategy. And yes, fantastic. There's a strategy, but then comes immediately the execution of it. And in that, they would want to see faster ROIs than before, because there's a lot more emphasis on time to market, because your competition is actually catching up faster and it's coming globally. And in this process, so they have to prioritize what is it that they want to modernize and what is it that they want to actually make progress with. And half of their applications, they're planning to modernize. So you can imagine the impact or the breadth of what they're trying to undertake here. Many of them run hundreds of applications in the enterprise, and that's the landscape they're dealing with. And finally, what is the impact they want to see is basically improving the customer experience. And this could mean various things to various enterprises, but at the end of the day, it's the experience, be it a partner, another business, or the end user, that they want to see that impact fairly in a profound manner. So I'll talk to you about a few of these, at least the top three concerns, so that you have a sense of what it is and how they are going about how does it look in their landscape and how are they trying to fix it. So the first one is the data strategy must back the business strategy. So this is the imperative. It's no longer sort of IT aiding the business kind of stuff. From that mindset has come to this strategy is what evolves the business. And if you look at it from the CTO's perspective, or someone who is running that entire the operational side of the data, you're seeing that they have a multitude of data sources, all the way from mainframes and relational databases and packaged applications and data lakes, data warehouses, you name it, they got it. The data is coming at them so fast and furious. They're generally having just consuming the data or making sense of the data is their first order of business. And all this data is siloed. Each one of them, if you want to make two of these systems talk, there's a lot of integration, there's a lot of mapping, there's a lot of data movement that is required. And imagine if you have tens of these sources, making them talk to each other, they're going about it. It confounds them at a certain level.
Ravi,
and these systems.
Ravi,
Yeah,
I have a question around that, specifically with like data lakes and such. Do you what's the Couchbase story around analytics in terms of you're a very operational database,
Yes.
but in terms of building out that, like, do you partner with, say, for example, Snowflake, or take your pick, or do you have plans longer term to build something out that supports analytical workloads?
Yeah, I think we do have our Couchbase analytics, which handles the analytical workloads. Our general philosophy is, of course, we are not in the business of a data lake or lake houses. That's a case of bringing data from 50 or 100 different sources into one place. Our general approach to that is find the insights in the operational data first. There's a lot of operational data coming from the source that you're using. So at this point, you started this journey with providing insights, the time to insight being milliseconds and not days and hours to the operational data that you're actually dealing with. If that's in the JSON format, fairly quickly you can find that. And if it is sitting in Couchbases in milliseconds. So that's how far we have gotten. And as this thing grows and evolves, we will partner with the sort of right data lake side of the house, because this data also has to find a way in there and from there back here. Because even if you do all your analysis on the analytical side, finally you get the insight into an operational system so that it can be served in microseconds and milliseconds kind of stuff. That sort of life cycle of data is where we are interested in. There are other sort of use cases which could be more on the internal operational operations of a company. That is where the other systems could be more useful. But here, any insight you find, however, finally being useful for an operational application or operational system is what we are sort of interested in. I
Got
hope
it.
that gives you some perspective of how we are thinking about this.
Yeah, for sure.
Fantastic. So if you look at this problem, how are they going about trying to solve this problem? They would want to see less of this sprawl, less of this data movement, less, I don't want to add one more thing to the whole equation and then create further data movement and complications is the general way they want to approach this. So if I'm going to bring a new system in, and I know I need to bring a new system in because the old ones aren't solving. In fact, they're making the scenarios worse. So they are looking for newer ways of solving the problem. But when you bring that in, how is that going to change the landscape? And what is the philosophy that they are going to think about this? If you ask them the question, the answer is generally the data mesh is how they are, that design pattern. It's a sort of socio-technological pattern, if you will, the data mesh concept, which is about organizing data in domains that are owned by the domain experts and then putting the data together. In this, we find that they find a fantastic use from Couchbase and Couchbase Capella, because this is sort of because of our schema flexibility. Now you can bring data from multiple systems and use this as a place which is your system of truth, some cases, or system of engagement. Your systems of record could still be your good old systems. And that's where the journey begins. And they can use one microservice at a time and move the data from their legacy systems into systems like Couchbase, which are then the systems of truth through which they are serving the fruition of the data mesh of what they want to really achieve comes through that way. Currently, many people end up using like message queues and search systems, you name it, as that layer. And that creates further complication because they actually want at some point the transactional and other data guarantees that you're looking for in a database. So far, such a system hadn't existed. And when you put something like Couchbase in, you are able to subtract few other systems as you start developing. And when you put a system like Couchbase in, it doesn't require you to remodel the entire application. You just can take those parts of the system, those microservices, one at a time, and then remodel the whole thing. It doesn't require you to go rewrite the entire application. And that's where we find success. So this is the first problem that they are sort of encountering. And when you bring such a systems in, then the second question is it going to help me deliver the value fairly quickly, because there is the faster time to market, reduce my OpEx, because OpEx shows to them as skill set issues, because there are so many new tools and I need to develop new skill sets, and that costs, and where do I train? How many more people do I need to recruit? All those issues comes up for them. And finally, definitely reduce the cloud spend is a big theme for many of them, because many have gotten on that bandwagon and suddenly find that now the bill is far exceeding what their expectation of that would be. And here, the general conversation that we have is that legacy technology is costing them, because it's slows down development. Just the operational cost of it is high, and what they're looking for is low development operational costs. If I put this system such as Couchbase, is it going to reduce the development cost and operational cost? And here our strategy has been sort of clear. In software, we end up doing this. First thing we change is the API. We're saying that's a new system, go learn my new set of APIs and go start building in this one. That's a huge cost to organizations. It's like saying that, I have developed an electric car. You don't need a steering wheel anymore. Just blow harder and lean back on your seat if you want to go faster or brake. It becomes difficult for adoption. So here we have taken the approach of using sort of everything is modern underneath the covers, but the steering wheel and the gas pedal is in the same place. In the case of a database, you all know this, that's SQL. So even though we are a NoSQL system, in one sense, that is from the standpoint of horizontal scaling, the full power of SQL is here. We have built a modern distributed query engine, but conforming to the same programming language of SQL, so you can do your select start from. And the magic here is that the schema could be constantly evolving because it's the JSON that is changing, but we have built some special stuff in here which late binds to schema, unlike traditional systems which will require you to define the schema before you can write your first SQL query. in our case, just keep putting JSONs and then write your SQL query and it won't barf. So that's how we reduce the operational cost and the development cost of this by, the upgrade, patching, rolling upgrades, all that stuff is sort of built into the system. So you can pretty much program your deployment as well as your development. So you can, people used to talk about infrastructure as code. With Couchbase, we can do database as code because that schema flexibility means you don't have to worry about schema upgrade migration. We take care of that. From there on, everything else is sort of handled. So that's the sort of advantage of using a system like Capella. Future-proofing these solutions is what the next topic for them is, because if I bring this one in, is this going to set me up for the next, couple of decades, if you will, because databases are the ones that you touch last. But if you put this one in, is this going to withstand the test of time is the question in their minds. And they are all in this cloud and edge journeys. And is this database something that will meet the future requirements of everything is going to be more on the edge, and there is going to be more, we all know this, more AI on the edge or more AI everywhere. And is this going to, add to the complexity, or is it going to simplify the complexity? That's what's in their mind. With our layer consolidation as well as the multidimensional scaling capabilities, what you basically are able to do is simplify the deployment. You're not sort of just writing connectors all over the place. 5 different things are happening in the same system. And the advantage of that is actually security also, because now you have 5 less systems consolidated into one system. That means you have 5 different API footprints that you can reduce to one, and that way you can secure this. This is the unintended benefit of this one, which we found based on our experience with our customers. So the threat surface area also reduces here, and this enables them to accelerate. So in one sense, it's a fairly advanced system. We made it approachable to our customers, because at the end of the day, if you really see it, you put Couchbase in there, you don't need a cache. The cache invalidation problem is solved. The cache and the database is in one place. You don't need to move the data to a search system, connectors and stuff like that. Your JSON searching capability is built into this one. You can do analytics on this system. And with eventing, you can put in your custom code on this one. So that's the sort of the net advantage of a system like Couchbase. And it is built in a manner, since, I mentioned the cache and the database thing, you can tune this one to be as memory friendly or as disk friendly as you want. So that depends on your choice of latency and your price that you want to pay for the performance that you're getting. And the system is tunable that way, to that extent. The late binding concept I talked about is strewn all over the product. So you can do a lot of stuff on the glass, as opposed to you having to go back to the design phase and read a lot of stuff. So that avoids you bringing down the system, bringing up the system. The 5 nines availability is taken care of because of that design. And we reduce the complexity and reduce the cloud footprint in one sense. That's what finally the benefit is. Your infrastructure costs also goes down by using a system like this. And we build the edge pieces, and imagine in the future state where AI is going to assist us in writing future applications. It's going to be a Cambrian explosion of sorts. What I mean by that is you're going to see that instead of you doing A/B testing, you're going to have 20 versions of the applications that they may want to deploy and figure out which is the version that I want to keep. This is what we end up doing every time we advance. Imagine photography from chemical to digital. From 20, now you have 2,000 pictures, and you decide which one to keep. That's exactly what's going to happen to applications in a small scale and microservices level. I'm not expecting to have 20 versions of an ERP applications running, but there'll be portions of it where you will get to see this. And that's the advantage that you have with a system like Couchbase, which is basically built for that future where you have multiple versions running concurrently, and you'll be able to manage, deploy, and administer that, and advance your application development that much faster. So that's the value proposition of Couchbase and our service, Couchbase Capella. And we are seeing tremendous interest from the enterprises who are building sophisticated applications, and mission critical applications is where we really shine.